I was on the beach in Thailand and it was dark. The moon was bright and I was the only one out. I was on this little island that I can't pronounce, so I won't even try. And there were other people staying in the resort, but no other night walkers on that particular evening. And I was going through a very immense spiritual awakening. That's what I call it. That's what Google tells me to call it. Although I have some reservations about that, as you know. And really what I was experiencing, and what some of you write to me also experiencing, is this sense of an energetic connection with somebody nearby, but who you can't actually see, almost as though they exist in another reality layer or another dimension. And I remember feeling this desperation is not the right word, because it has a connotation that isn't quite correct. This undying sense of commitment and loyalty, paired with this determination to find whoever I was connecting with, because the energetic magnetism was so strong and it felt so familiar that I knew that I would move mountains to, I don't want to say be with them because I don't know who they are, right? You can't just script out a random person that you've never met. But I knew that I was supposed to be present with them in some fashion. Business, friendship, romantic, I wasn't quite sure. And I was frustrated because I was traveling the world trying to meet them, and I felt as though I would leave no stone unturned. And it reminds me of this email that I got from somebody who they didn't talk about it like this, but they talked about this fervor need to reality shift because they were trying to meet somebody. And the way that they described this energetic connection was with the same tonality of the emotional experience that I had too. This underlying determination, we have to get to the other side. Fast forward a couple of nights later, and I would be on the beach again, but this time looking up at the stars in a private section away from the resort, yelling and screaming and angry with the universe because I couldn't figure it out. At this point, it felt as though I was chasing ghosts. And this wouldn't be the last time that I would experience this. And it felt as though there was something out of my grasp, but within my awareness, that I could get close to, but not actually pull into material form. And the frustration that I felt was unparalleled. And I felt as though there was some project, something that I was supposed to do, some destiny thing, some creation that I was supposed to make. And I kept feeling as though it was also out of my reach. So what's interesting is that now this is 5 years later, and I have a lot more experience under my belt. And what I observe is that the mind has this tendency of prioritizing the magnetism of connections that we feel. And what I've learned is that just because, seriously, I could save you years here. If you really, really, really are struggling with this lesson, this can instantly change your outlook, change your vibration, and change your path. If you really take it in and you happen to be struggling with it. There was something that my mind did, which was over prioritize the feeling of magnetism and soul connections. And then what it would also do is very often, this is kind of embarrassing, very often it would bucket that feeling into the romance bucket. And so it was like I would go around imprinting on people, even if I didn't really know who they were. If I was feeling that connection, then I'd be like, oh, we must be soulmates, or oh, we must be twin flames, or whatever it is, right? And now I realize that it's just information, and it's valuable information. I'm not trying to discount it. But when you are awakening from a binary, linear, dead existence, where you are used to the 3D world, where people are mostly disconnected, and they're very mind driven, they're very body driven, and even emotionally driven, but spiritually vapid. And so as a result, there's this a thirst or a hunger that becomes awakened when you get a little taste of the energetics. And then you pair that with somebody that you're interested in or a destiny encounter. And it's like all of a sudden you're seeing color for the first time, and this whole new world opens up to you. But because you are coming from an existence where this was rare, what happens, this is what I did. I'm not saying you do this, but just in case you do, it's really important to talk about. And there's no shame if you also do this. When you're coming from a place where that is super, super rare, like once in a blue moon, scarcity mindset takes over, and you hold on to the first flame that you encounter. And even if it's not the right fit for you, you might ignore certain things, or you might accept certain behaviors that when you're on the self-love journey and the self-respect journey, you learn later on, like I did, that unacceptable behavior is still unacceptable. And you learn to walk away a lot faster, because once you get more experience, more mature, then you see it for what it is, which is a magnetism. And then you observe your mind and your mind's tendency to hold on really tightly or to over specialize it. And this is normal when you think about where you came from, especially when you're starting like I was, which was mostly unawake. I had done so much personal work. So psychologically speaking, in terms of my metacognition, I was very ahead, super, super far ahead. And I still see that I'm ahead relative to my peers. But I was spiritually dead and emotionally disconnected. My heart was not online. And this is where I was behind. And so I've had to spend a lot of time working on this. But because that was my path, and I was also disconnected from my body. And because that was my path of awakening, I was like, wow, this is amazing to feel this. And so then I was imprinting on every person that I was feeling that with, and then assuming, wrongly sometimes, that we were meant to be together in a romantic fashion. What I've come to realize is that just because you have that feeling does not mean that the behaviors are in alignment, because sometimes people are slow when it comes to pulling their integrity online and eliminating some of their toxic behavior patterns. and upgrading their psychology. And so you can have that magnetism with somebody who is completely unaware of their inner world. I kid you not. And imagine you doing a lot of personal work and then feeling that magnetic pull with somebody who literally is just behaving in a very unconscious way because, or from like a wounded place, because they themselves haven't done that internal work that you have. And so one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is chasing down that feeling and not paying attention to the person and the behaviors that come with that person. And so what can happen is that you can chase down ghosts. You can chase down the fantasy of people without understanding how it maps to the actual being who's materialized. And as a result, you over prioritize connections with them and then end up in potentially abusive situations sometimes, or horrifically toxic. And so be advised that this is what I believe some of the twin flame traps are. And especially because people don't make it past the first one. And the first one is often not great, in my opinion, because it's a process of awakening. And when you're early in that process, both of you have a lot of work to do. And so, like, I knew one person who was in a twin flame dynamic where their person was not recognizing it, even though they were both feeling it. They were gaslighting her, and like they had this really powerful, intense connection. She was hung up on him for years, and he treated her so terribly and pretty much ignored her and had this hole in him, this empty hole that he was trying to fill with the attention of other women. So whenever she wasn't giving him attention, he was getting attention from multiple other women. He was like a surfer, and it's kind of like part of the culture too. And so he was behaving in a socially appropriate way for his subculture, but for the twin flame journey, it was incredibly damaging, and it was really, really hard on her. I wonder if she's still into him. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a while, but anyway, so, and it was super, super toxic, and there was drug addiction in there too. And so the point is that if she had held on to this idea that there was only one twin flame and he was her twin flame partner, she continued to do her work and he did not. So now imagine her spending the entire remainder of her life waiting for him when he was not awake inside. And he was not understanding his own hole that he was trying to fill in these other ways. And he was not honoring the twin flame journey. So then let's fast forward 20 years. She's holding on to this memory of the love that they had, even though she's continued on with the journey of her own self-exploration and self-mastery. This is the other part of chasing ghosts that can be a consciousness trap when you hold on to the nostalgia and the memory of what once was, but you have actually changed a lot. You've become a different person. You dress differently. You might even talk differently. You think differently. You make different decisions, different choices. Your reality is completely different. You shifted. You might be vegan when you were a meat eater. You might smoke when you've never smoked. You might have stopped drinking alcohol. You know, all the things that made you are now like fundamentally different. And internally, your triggers are different. You're no longer triggered by somebody not texting you at a certain time. You might even be in an open relationship, so you might even have overcome things like jealousy and possessive feelings. You could just be living a completely different paradigm, is the point. Even if these specific examples are not relevant for you. For you to hold on to the memory of what was would be such a mistake, because the person that existed then is gone. So literally it's just a ghost of a memory fragment that you have, which also changes. Retrocausality, when you're reality shifting, will change your memories, just so you know, if you haven't already experienced that. It's really kind of interesting. So memory is faulty. And even if your memory hasn't changed, it's still faulty. And we know this. Neuroscience knows this. Psychologists know this. And so you holding on to these fragments of what used to be, even though you yourself are a completely different person. Let's put you as your upgraded self in a room with your lower sentient self and do a little comparison. How would you approach that relationship differently? What are some ways that you would no longer engage in toxic behaviors? What if the point of attraction was that toxicity? And so now we've eliminated that toxicity, so we've eliminated that point of attraction. You see, when you look backwards, it's important to realize that who you were then and what you and how you were attracted to somebody is also different. And you might say, oh, well, I would do it differently. You might not even be interested in the relationship. Like when you start to really, really change, you start to upgrade what you'll accept in relationships. And when something was really, really toxic, you might just look back and be like, never again. And you'll believe it, you'll feel it, and you'll see people, or people will approach you with some of those behavior patterns, and it's not even a question. You'll be like, no, because you will have upgraded yourself and your self-respect. So the old relationship that was so magnetic for you way back when you were a toxic person actually is an empty shell for the person that you are today. It holds no attraction. Like I think back to some of the most magnetic relationships, and I think to myself, if I saw that person walking down the street, I don't even know if I would recognize them, first of all. And if I did recognize them, I would be horribly concerned. If they were the same walking paradigm of who they were then, that would tell me they haven't changed, and I would not be attracted to them at all, and might even be repelled. And so when we hold on to the memories of a nostalgia, we're holding on to ghosts. And all of these chasing ghost examples are really illusions that keep us bound to fantasies. And that's why it is really important to not let yourself fall into this illusion that this feeling that you have can be recaptured, or will maintain if you really got to know the person. Now I'm like, okay, we've got some magnetism, so let me see your shadow, because that's really, at the end of the day, what's going to bother us is our shadows. Are those compatible? Have you done shadow work? Oh, good, you have. Okay, perfect. So then let's lay it out on the table. And then let's see, is there still magnetism? Is there not? Have you not done shadow work? Oh my God, don't go hitching your lifelines to me. Don't put me in your manifestation. I'll give you an empty vector. I'm not showing up for that one. No. So you want to understand that magnetism can pull you towards somebody, but it can get very easily stamped out when you start to see who that person is on their worst days. And it might just take all the magic out of it. And I've experienced that with the father of my child. It was very magnetic, very beautiful, very much a soul destiny connection. And then it was like he sucked all the magic out of it. It was unbearable. It was literally unbearable. So I had to GTFO. Sorry to say it like that, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I tried to work with him. And then I realized that it was untenable. And so I left. And I'm really happy that I left. And I meet other people who are in a similar type of arrangement, similar type of paradigm. And I say no early now. And I do work with people professionally. And there's a lot of triggering, there's a lot of helping people through their patterns, but no more in my personal life. And I encourage you to do the same too. If you've done a lot of personal work, there's nothing that says that you need to get down in the dirt with somebody and help them through the trenches, unless you're going to charge for it. And then you should charge in a way that feels fair for you. And I actually have a shadow tax where I increase the rate based on the unbearableness of the shadow that is elicited through our professional relationship. So if you are interested in doing some heavy shadow work, it is a specialty of mine. Feel free to reach out to me. My Pluto is on my MC conjunct my moon, just so you know. So I am a transformer. I was just listening to some article about Elon Musk and how he is a disruptor. And I thought to myself, interesting, he's a disruptor, I am a transformer. And so there are people that have these archetypes that have this effect on others that is really potent. It's very intense, and it's what makes it so effective. And so people who come into my life are never the same, and it's always for the benefit. It's always. But sometimes it can actually take a little bit of a nosedive down if we're doing heavy shadow work. If we're just doing reality shifting coaching, business coaching, if we're, staying in more of the love and light or the purpose, then you don't have to worry about that. But if you are drawn to me and you are heavy in your shadow, then you'll know, because it'll be a discernible vibration. And I encourage you to do the same, to think about the vibration that you elicit and work with people on, and then to put people in their respective orbits in your life as a form of self-love, self-care, and boundaries. And please don't go chasing ghosts, not ghosts of the past or interdimensional ghosts who you don't really know yet, just be very wise about it and exercise discernment. So if you want to work one-on-one, feel free to reach out to me at sacredjourneyproductions@gmail.com. Okay, we'll talk soon.